Hi, I'm Alex. I am an MXDR security engineer for the MXDR department here at Heimdal, and I'm going to walk you through everything that the MXDR team is doing and all of the tools that we are using to protect our customers. This is a test account which we're using for demonstrations. Where you see this list of endpoints, we see a list of clients. And each client with every new detection comes in here at the top of the list every day, and we look on them one by one to see exactly what's going on the account. The MXDR department, besides using the action center that we have here in the threat hunting and action center, can also go on each module one by one and see in detail all of the detections. For example, we have the DNS security module, which has the network, endpoint, and vector end detection modules. So this is pretty straightforward. The network module detects everything that is going on the network, but this one depends a lot on the customer and how they have their environment set up. We mostly look at the endpoint detection. Here we can see a list of all of the endpoints that have DNS security detections on them. We can also see the analyzed requests and the prevented attacks. So we have, for example, one analyzed request, one domain that has been accessed and analyzed, zero prevented attacks, meaning that that domain was deemed safe. If we go on any of these modules, we go to this specific endpoints page and we can see all of the domains that have been blocked on this specific endpoint, and then do our analysis further on by looking into more information using our dashboard to see where this domain is located and more information. This one is zero because it's an example. But we do have lots of information that we can use here. We can also search for it on VirusTotal to see if it has any other reports from other vendors of malicious activity. Still on the DNS security, we have the vector end module, which is a pretty interesting module. Let me see, just a second. So the vector end module works together with the endpoint detection, with the dark layer guard module. So the dark layer guard, which detects at the endpoint level, detects all of the domains that are accessed on the endpoint. The vector end detects patterns on the domains detected by the dark layer guard module. So basically, if you have 10 detections of blocked adware domain, the vector end module will see a pattern in this and say, hey, we detected a adware pattern on this endpoint because it has this many detections. And then you can see this, and you see the probability of infection, the count, how many detections it took to come to this pattern, and so on. The TTPC, the threat to process correlation, which helps us determine which process on the endpoint is doing this detection. We use our action center to see if it detected anything out of date, or we actually use the module, which is third-party management, to see third-party apps that are installed and their installed version and their CVSS score, which is basically a score from 1 to 10, indicating how critical the vulnerability is. Based on this, we contact the customer, we take action if we are allowed to install this for the customer, and so on, to make sure that there is no outdated software installed that might present a risk. We are doing this vulnerability management for Windows OS. We are also doing it for Linux OS if you have any endpoints that are using Linux, and also for Mac OS. On our test customer here, we do not have anyone to show, but it will look the same as on Windows OS, showing the installed software on the account. we are also using the operating system updates module to check all of the pending or available operating system updates for your endpoints, because out of date operating systems are also prone to vulnerabilities. On this module, we can also see the CVSS score of this update, basically meaning that if you don't have this update installed, you have a vulnerability with this score. We can also see OS updates on Linux and macOS if we have anything available. The most important modules are here on endpoint detection. Here we can see the firewall module, which helps us see firewall alerts. I can find an example to show here. So in the Firewall Alerts tab on the Firewall module, we can see all of the brute force attempts that happened on a specific endpoint, and basically all of the endpoints on the account. We can see many details such as the local IP of the attempt. We can expand this and see the usernames that the attacker tried to use to connect to this machine and so on. The next-gen antivirus detects all of the malicious files that may be running on your endpoint and quarantines them. As you can see, there's a list of very suspiciously named files which the antivirus quarantined. We can see many information such as the MD5, its category, the infection name, the status, and so on. We can go further from this to the XTP module, which is a set of rules that do not block anything but help us with the threat hunting process a lot, because these rules show us traces of an attack or possible attacks. We can see commands that were used that are not usually used. We can see machine behavior that is not expected and so on, and really go through anything suspicious that might be happening on the endpoint besides malicious files and so on. So this monitors the endpoint's behavior for suspicious patterns. Also, we have the ransomware encryption module, which So the ransomware encryption module detects processes that are trying to encrypt files. So this module allows us to go into forensic details about any process that is being detected. And into the forensic details, we can see a process tree of anything that this detected process went through. So we can see it started from the Explorer, which means the user opened this one, it opened this executable file, which used this command line to open this one, and so on, to use PowerShell with execution policy bypass to go through cone host and so on. So we can see it had 2 write operations and 137 read operations that can help us in lots of cases. If it's related to any IP address, we can see down here. This one is not. Processes detected by the ransomware encryption protection module can be either actually malicious, trying to do harm to your endpoint, or they can be legit processes of real legit software that are doing write operations and read operations, and they are encrypted files. Because a normal software that you're using day by day might encrypt its own data to prevent it from being stolen or to prevent it from being tampered with. So that's where the MXDR team comes in. We look over the detection and see exactly if the process that has been detected, it's an actual normal process that encrypted its own files to prevent others from harming them, or it's an actual attack, it's an actual threat that it's trying to encrypt all of the other files besides its own. Further on, Heimdal also offers the privileges and app control modules, which the MXDR team does not provide support on. This is strictly for the users to administrate their endpoints and what can go and not go on them. Same for the email protection. We do offer this module, but MXDR does not manage this module. This is again for the administrator of the client to manage all of the emails that are coming through and everything that's blocked. Basically, incident detection is when the MXDR team detects that something is actually going on your account, that there is an actual ransomware virus, an actual brute force attack going on your environment. This is again detected by us, which are looking over all of the alerts that are coming through. If the client decides that we have the permission to take action, in these cases, we would first of all go to the affected endpoint and take the following actions. Depending on the case, we will isolate the machine, we will request the logs and look over them to see exactly what was going on, and we will start a scan. Further on in the incident response, we will, again, depending on the case, ask the customer to have a remote session with them to basically look over their endpoint and see if we can find any other traces or any other information that might help us determine what's the origin of the attack. After that, we do our analysis with the internal tools that we have and come up with an incident report at the end of the analysis, which we send to the customer. And we also do vulnerability remediation. We make sure that any vulnerability that was used to start this attack, to start this incident, is not available anymore, and this cannot happen again. Proactive threat hunting is when we, as the MXDR team, go through your endpoint settings and make sure that you have everything set up correctly to make sure that your settings are not allowing an attacker to connect remotely to your account, to access a domain, to allow a file that is malicious, and so on. So, proactive threat hunting is, again, first of all, making sure your settings are in place so you are not at risk of getting infected. And also, proactive threat hunting means that by looking over all of your detections, we make sure that you cannot get infected before someone even tries to do it, or you fall into a scam or a phishing attack or something.